Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about that recent debate that I had with Matt Sy, and more specifically a rather disturbing revelation that I had later on listening to the debate afterwards. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Matt Sy is a commenter with a very tiny channel who demanded that I debate him because of my videos that have been critical of Jim Sterling. Now, for those of you who are curious as to how exactly the debate went, I would have to say that it appears to have strongly went in my favor. And while I did admittedly see some room for myself to improve, I was still able to repeatedly get Matt Sy to flip-flop on his own arguments, with him repeatedly claiming that he never stated certain things that he did mere minutes ago, or in some cases even seconds ago. And ultimately, it is in relation to one of these positions upon which Matt Sy flip-flopped that gave me the aforementioned disturbing revelation. But for context, let's move on to talking about the particular parts of the discussion that made this revelation happen. And the first part of the discussion being that Matt Sy tried to make the argument that you should not critique an ideology over the extremists it produces, and by extension what those extremists do in the name of the ideology. For reference, the specific example I will show of Matt Sy taking this position occurs at the timestamp of 50 minutes and 58 seconds. You're agreeing, though, that that is an extreme position, correct?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
If it's an extreme position that is a specific product of the ideology, should we not criticize the ideology for creating that extreme position?
No, because people are people and they have dumb takes all the time. You can't say that like an entire set of ideas based on, I guess we have to define right now what the ideology is. Because in my mind, social justice just means...
As you can see, Matt Sy very clearly made the case that you cannot critique an ideology for the extremists it produces, and by extension the things those extremists do in the name of the ideology. In response, I decided to start providing historical examples that show the faults in the line of reasoning taken by Matt Sy, with the most notable being that according to Matt Sy's own argument, he could not critique National Socialism over its role in producing extremists that committed the Holocaust. With that said, here is that particular part of the conversation in whole, and for reference, the timestamp for which this part of the discussion occurs is at 53 minutes and 1 second. Alright, so let's use a more recent example. By your own definition, we cannot hold National Socialism responsible for the Holocaust. Specifically because the people that were responsible were extremists. And because, by your own definition, we cannot judge the ideology by its extremists, then we can't criticize the ideology itself.
So we can't, so you just said we can't
That's
criticize...
your position.
No, hold up. Calm down. I'm just reiterating what you said to make sure we're on the same page. You are saying that I am saying that my point is that we can't criticize socialism even though it caused the Holocaust? Is that, if that's wrong, please tell me. I'm just trying to get on the level with you.
Your argument is that we cannot criticize social justice because of the extremists that it produces. But by that own definition, you cannot criticize National Socialism because of the extremists that it produced either.
Well, the Holocaust happened in the 40s. So if we want to talk about, again, we can talk about how bad things were then, but that doesn't really have a lot of representation as far as it goes today.
So you see no problem with the National Socialists of today?
I'll be totally honest with you. I don't know enough about it to have a point on that. I don't.
Do you know what the phrase National Socialist means?
It was used by a number of unrelated groups before the Nazis, but since their rise, I mean, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. Yeah, I mean, Nazism, officially National Socialism, is the ideology and practice associated. So sure, if it's what caused Nazis, then sure, that's bad, I guess.
Then you can criticize an ideology for the extremists.
I never said you couldn't. I'm just saying.
No,
I
you
never
did say that.
No, I didn't. No.
No. You did.
I absolutely did not.
Yes, you did.
I did not.
As you can tell, Matt Sy ultimately flip-flopped on this particular position, claiming that he never made the argument that you should not critique an ideology for the extremists it produces. Even though a mere 29 seconds ago, Matt Sy had just finished a sentence in which he was doing his best to defend National Socialism and its role in the Holocaust, specifically because the Holocaust happened all the way back in the 1940s. And Matt only gave up this particular position when he found out that he was in fact fact unironically defending Nazism. And it was after listening to this part of the debate afterwards that I had that aforementioned revelation that I have been talking about. For you see, what this audio just proved beyond any and all doubt is that Matt Sy's biggest problem with the Holocaust is not the millions of dead that it produced. It is not the unimaginable human suffering that it produced either. It's the fact that it was not committed by the right people. Matt Sy was perfectly willing to be dismissive about the Holocaust and downplay it because he understood the perpetrators in question to be National Socialists, and refused to let his fellow socialists be critiqued, until he realized that those fellow socialists were in fact literal Nazis. This is easily one of the most disturbing examples of tribalism that I have seen so far. That an SJW would unironically demonstrate that he thinks that the Holocaust would have been perfectly forgivable just so long as it was done by people he politically liked. But of course, it gets even worse, because Matt Sy was able to repeatedly demonstrate throughout the debate that he was not an extremist SJW, but merely a moderate SJW. And really think about that. The fact that the argument that the Holocaust would have been perfectly forgivable if it had merely been done by the SJWs is merely a moderate position as far as the ideology is concerned. And if that is merely the moderate position, think of just how bad the true dyed-in-the-wool social justice extremists must be. But basically, I don't even have to talk about the social justice extremists anymore to make my point, as we can now look at the moderates of the ideology, and how apparently it is a moderate position to think that the Holocaust would have been morally forgivable had it merely been done by the right people. I believe that we should never ever let the far-left social justice warriors play stuff like this down. Instead, we should bring it up at every opportunity. If they want to make debates about moral arguments, then we should highlight the truly immoral and evil nature of the ideology of social justice, and do so at every opportunity. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.